The breakfast rush at Mel's diner was always chaotic. Plates clattered, bacon sizzled on the grill, orders were shouted, voices crashing into each other like waves hitting shore. But that morning, through all the noise and motion, Sarah noticed him again. A small boy, no more than 10 years old, sat alone in the farthest booth, his hands clasped tightly, his head lowered as if dreaming to disappear. He wore the same oversized hoodie he'd worn yesterday, and the day before that. His sneakers were frayed at the sides, the laced furrent colors, barely holding on. What stopped Sarah wasn't how worn down he looked. It was the way he kept studying the menu without ever waving her over. Her chest tightened. She knew that look. She'd worn it once herself, quietly, without drawing attention. She set a plate of pancakes and fluffy scrambled eggs in front of him, on the house. She whispered gently, offering a warm smile. The boy froze, his eyes widening, his lips shaking. Slowly, he looked up at her for the first time and gave a small nod. He never spoke, but Sarah didn't need him to. She understood. Sometimes silence spoke louder than any words ever could. Soon, the boy became part of her morning routine. Day after day, he returned, always alone, always quiet. He never ordered or asked for anything, yet Sarah never failed to bring him food. Some mornings it was pancakes, other days soup, sometimes just eggs and toast. She never pried. She never asked why. She never shed a tear in front of him. All she knew was that he was hungry. And to her, that was reason enough. Her co-workers joked softly, "Sarah, you'll put this place out of business, giving away free meals." Even her manager, Rick, laughed it off. But Sarah just shrugged and said, "If you've ever gone to bed hungry, you'd understand." Because once upon a time, Sarah saw herself in that boy. She remembered being that child once. Long, quiet nights while her mother worked double shifts, hoping tips would stretch far enough to buy dinner. She remembered the hollow pain in her stomach, the way hunger settled in and refused to leave. She remembered sitting at school, pretending she wasn't hungry, pretending it didn't hurt when other kids opened their lunchboxes. And she remembered the shame most of all. She often thought, if someone had shown her a little kindness back then, maybe the world wouldn't have felt so cold. So she kept feeding him every single day, without hesitation. But the mystery grew heavier with time. Weeks passed, and questions lingered in her mind. Who was this boy, really? Why did he always come alone? Why did no one ever come looking for him? One evening after her shift, as Sarah walked home under flickering streetlights, she spotted him across the street. This time, he wasn't alone with his Tootsie, was struggling under thewit of a grocery bag far too heavy for his small arms. She slowed her steps, watching as he crossed the road and disappeared into an old, run-down apartment building. The kind where paint peeled from the walls, doors barely closed, and neighbors learned not to ask questions. That night, Sarah lay awake, staring at the ceiling. She imagined him in a cold, dim room, maybe taking care of himself, maybe waiting for parents who never came home. Her chest tightened. She wanted to help, but how far could she really go? She was just a waitress, barely keeping herself afloat. Still, she whispered apromise into the dark, as long as he walks into that diner, I'll keep feeding him. But life wasn't easy for Sarah either. Bills stacked higher each month. Rent climbed without mercy. Then her mother got sick, and hospital visits swallowed whatever savings she had left. Some days, Sarah stood frozen, choosing between paying her own electric bill or slipping an extra sandwich. into a paper bag, fourth boy to take home. Her manager grew less patient. We're losing money. Sarah, I can't afford to let you give food away anymore. The words hit her hard. Sarah's chest tightened and her heart sank deep into her stomach. The thought of that boy walking through the diner doors one morning and leaving hungry was unbearable. So she made a choice. She started sneaking leftovers into small containers, tucking them into her purse, slipping them to him when no one was looking. Every meal was a risk. Every smile from him could cost her job. But to Sarah, kindness wasn't a luxury, it was survival. Then came the morning that changed everything. It was cold outside, the kind of chill that crept into your bones. Sarah was mid-pour, filling a customer's coffee cup, when she heard the low rumble of engines. Not one, not two. 4 sleek black SUVs rolled up outside the diner. The room fell silent. Forks paused. Conversations died instantly. Every head turned toward the windows. The doors of the SUVs opened, and men in dark suits stepped out, scanning Theria like hawks. One of them pushed open the diner door. The bell chimed softly, but the sound felt loud in the sun. Sarah's heart raced. The air grew heavy. Customers whispered under their breath. Who were these people? What were they doing here? Then Sarah saw him. The boy walked in behind them, the same boy she had fed for weeks. But this time, there was no oversized hoodie. He wore a clean shirt. His hair was neatly combed, though his eyes still stayed low. One of the men guided him forward, almost protectively, as if he was important. Sarah's hands shook as she set their coffee pot down. The boy looked up. Metha Izan smiled. For the first time, he smiled. One of the suited men approached her. Are you the one who's been feeding the own master? Sarah stared at him, confused. The what? The man nodded respectfully. This boy is the son of Mr. Donovan Hayes. The name slammed into the diner lightsander. Donovan Hayes, the billionaire. The man whose face filled business magazines. The name attached to skyscrapers, corporations, and unimaginable wealth. Sarah's knees nearly gave out. She stared at the boy, who now stood closer. Thanavir, his eyes shining, filled with thunged tears. One of the men spoke softly. He ran away, he explained. After his mother passed, he stopped speaking completely. Mr. Hayes didn't know how to reach him. The man paused. He disappeared weeks ago. We've been searching everywhere. Sarah's mouth opened, but nothing came out. She slowly looked back at the boy. He met her gaze, his silence heavier than ever before. Then, for the first time, he spoke. His voice was small, but steady. She fed me. The diner sucked in a collective breath. Sarah's eyes burned with tears. She fed me every day, he said again. Louder now, his tiny fists clenched at these sides. She's the only one, Honnety used. Before anyone could speak, the diner door opened once more. A tall man in a perfectly tailored suit stepped inside, his presence commanding Donovan Hayes himself. Their room went still. His eyes swept across diner until they landed on Sarand, then on the boy. The boy hesitated, then ran to him. Hayes dropped to his knees, pulling Hissan into his arms, his face breaking Asrielf washed over him. In that moment, Sarah didn't see a billionaire or a powerful empire builder. She saw Abrakan father who had been terrified of losing his child forever. After a long, trembling embrace, Hayes stood and turned toward Sarah. "You fed my son," he said quietly. Sarah nodded. Her voice caught in her throat.